So, hello folks, Mr. Finley here. This is going to be the vocabulary and terms video for the Viewpoints terms. We're going to be spending a week and maybe next week as well doing physical stuff with the body, and this is the vocabulary we're going to be using to talk about how the body moves in space, how we can use it on stage to create stories. There are 9 very specific terms, and we'll go over them here as well as in class. So there are 5 of these terms that relate to space and how your body exists in space. The most obvious, but also maybe the most difficult to define, is shape. That is the area and form filled or defined by the body. Shape tells the audience something. If you're standing up very straight and stock still, then your character is probably pretty proper. If you're bent over, maybe you're pretty old. If your shape is slouched, maybe your character is sort of lazy. So we tell the audience a lot of information about our character through our shape. Also, we tell the audience a lot of information by gesture. A gesture is a repeated physical action that carries meaning. The obvious ones are, say, waving hello or goodbye, or even a kiss. These are gestures, and they mean something. They're physical actions. They can be repeated, and they carry some meaning. When you're creating a character on stage, one of the questions to ask are, what are the sort of gestures this character uses, as well as what is this character's shape? Maybe a little less clear is topography. Topography refers to a body's path through space. So even though I'm going from the same point A to point B, maybe my topography is a straight line, or maybe it curves and coils and goes all over the place before it finally gets to its final destination. Those both say things about the character, so we can change our topography to tell the audience about our character. Architecture refers to the objects in the space. That doesn't just mean like the walls and the ceiling and the floor, which is what we usually use the word architecture to mean, but literally any object that is in the space, any physical thing that we can react with, falls under the heading of architecture. Relationship has to do with the distance and arrangement of bodies in space. That is, when we're all in the room together, our relationship tells the audience something. For example, if they come into the classroom and see you all sitting on the floor looking up at me, they know just by our relationship that I'm probably telling you something. I'm probably the teacher and you are probably students, especially if that relationship involves architecture like the whiteboard behind me. Without me saying anything, they could see that architecture and that relationship and know that I was a teacher speaking to students. Using those 5 elements, you can make pretty much any picture you want on stage. And you can use these 5 terms to be very specific about what you're doing. Rather than just saying, oh, go there and sort of look that way, you can say, I want you to use this gesture, I want your body to have this shape, I want you to have this relationship with the other characters. You can be very specific as a director telling actors what to do, and also as an actor deciding for yourself what's going on. But that just creates pictures, and that's not all we do on stage. We also move, so that requires time. These next 4 elements regard time. The first is the most obvious one, tempo, how fast or slow something is. You can change the meaning of something just by changing the tempo. If you wave really fast, the audience thinks you're excited. If you wave really slow, it's the same gesture, but now the audience thinks you're sad. You've just changed the tempo. Repetition is how many times something happens. The more it happens, it changes the meaning of it. If something happens 1 time, it's different than it happens 20 times. Duration means how long something lasts. It's related to repetition, how many times something happens. Then the hardest one is this last one, kinesthetic response. And it's sort of the hardest. We'll spend a lot of time in class talking about it and figuring out. But it basically means to respond naturally and honestly to impulse. All these other words give us a framework to talk about how the body moves in space. But if all you're doing when you're on stage is figuring out what's my topography, what's my shape, what is my tempo here, you become robots. So this kinesthetic response is that which breathes life into the robot. That is to say, when something happens, you react to it honestly. We'll spend a lot of time in class figuring that out because it's a little tricky. But the basic definition is that kinesthetic response is to respond naturally and honestly to impulse. So those are the 9 viewpoints terms. We're going to be using them a lot in the next 2 weeks, so you'll get very familiar with them. But if you need to review, here is this video. Thanks so much.